Hello, Nigel here. I couldn't help noticing that you're still awake. Now, I'm an owl, I'm supposed to be up at night, but you need your sleep. So if it's your allergy symptoms that are keeping you up, here's a word to the wise. Try Xyzal. You see, Xyzal works fast to relieve sneezing, runny nose, itchy watery eyes, and itchy nose and throat. And it keeps going strong for 24 hours, so you can get your sleep and wake up refreshed and ready for a productive day ahead. Be wise, all. Take Xyzal at night. Use as directed. Starts working in 45 minutes.
The number one selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Leading a business today means constantly adapting. On the Executive Insights podcast brought to you by AWS, global leaders share how they're making tough calls, testing bold ideas, and putting innovation into practice, generative AI included. If you're looking for real stories behind what's working, this is it. Subscribe to the Executive Insights podcast today. Available now on all major podcast platforms.
Pie in the Sky Media. This series contains adult language and descriptions of graphic violence throughout. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to the Murder Chronicles. I'm your host, Carolyn Osorio. You're listening to episode 53, part 2 of The Clown.
Can you tell me about the relationship between Michael and Marley?
Well, he didn't treat her as good as he should treat a wife, put it that way.
Okay.
In other words, that she was a good woman.
Okay.
And she always tried to do right. She hard worker.
Throughout this episode, you'll hear police interviews with witnesses in the murder investigation of Marlene Warren. Last week, on part 1 of The Clown, Marlene Warren had been brutally shot on the front doorstep of her home. She'd been reaching out for balloons and a basket of flowers from a clown. The young woman you'll hear from now, Jean, was there. She had just finished up eating breakfast when an unannounced clown showed up on the doorstep.
Just finished cooking breakfast for everybody and sat down and got ready to eat. Somebody pulled up in a white car. He had a clown suit on, he had flowers, and a bunch of balloons. He had a clown suit on. He was real tall, over 6 foot tall, you know. Fully gloves, boots. Couldn't tell if he was white or black. I saw his face. We heard a pop twice. We thought she fainted, but she wasn't until my brother went to go look at her. There was a bullet skimmed on the side of her head.
She would describe the clown to the police as tall, well over 6 foot, that it was a male, and according to her, the only thing visible beneath the makeup were his beady brown eyes. A neighbor had heard shots.
I've never met these people before because we just recently moved in here. And while I was in the garage, I heard 2 reports, like pistol shots, probably high caliber. And I had my camper generator running. I thought I might have had a backfire on it. I ran out to check it, and it was okay. And when I was out, I looked south, I guess a quarter of a mile across the field, and saw the gray house on the other street. And a young man was standing in the front door hollering, and I saw just the back side of a white, appeared to be a convertible with a black top. Well, it had to be a long distance away. I could just barely make it out. I came back in the house and told my wife that I thought I heard pistol shots and something might have happened across the field. I ran out, and Bob Brewster, my neighbor, was mowing in his mower. I stopped him, and I told him, I heard this, and his children had heard it also. So we kind of ran and walked across the field, and as we cut behind the house, Bill was coming out of his patio, and I imagine it's 100 yards or so behind the victim's house. And I said, "Did you hear anything?" He said, "I thought I heard a couple of pistol shots." And I said, "Well, let's be real careful and get away from the house and yell if there would help anybody if there's a problem in there, because I didn't want to walk in on somebody and get shot."
This neighbor just happened to be a doctor, and he rushed to the home and offered to help.
So I yelled in, and I heard somebody crying, and I said, "I'm a physician, can I help you?" And they said, "Oh yes, please, help us." And so we came through the door, showed me their mother lying on the floor with her face facing up, and the doorway was open, and there were some flowers next to her, and balloons were towards her head, more into the kind of a dining room area. Her mouth was bloody at that time. There wasn't a large amount of blood on the floor, and she was having some agonal respiration, just hardly anything. So I quickly assessed her, and I didn't feel a pulse in the carotid at that time. I rolled her over, cleaned her mouth out. I couldn't find the wound, so I put my hand in her mouth, and I had a large spoon to depress her tongue to establish a airway. And there was a jumble of teeth in there, and so I assumed then she had been probably shot in the mouth, and this was confirmed when the paramedics got there and intubated her. And by the way, they were there very quickly. I would say within 5 minutes. They really responded well and did an excellent job when they got there. And at that point, I relieved myself of the situation and let them take over.
As Marlene was fighting for her life in the hospital, shot in the face by a clown, detectives went about interviewing friends and family and co-workers, and it wasn't long before rumors began to fly that Marlene's husband, Mike, had engaged in numerous affairs, but that there was one woman in particular named Sheila who repoed cars for him. Both Mike and Sheila were interviewed and denied having the affair. 2 days after Marlene was shot, she would die from her injuries. Here's Marlene's sister, who would be interviewed by police after Marlene's funeral.
Friday night, right? The day before the thing?
It was Thursday or Friday, I can't remember.
Okay.
She said she was or she did confront him, and she told him she wasn't putting up with any more of his stuff.
She said she confronted him?
Right.
When did she say she did that? That day, or?
Probably the night before.
According to Deborah, Marlene's sister, she was afraid of her husband, Michael.
She called me and she said that he beat her up and she threatened to leave him, and he threatened her that he'd kill her.
When was this?
Probably a year ago, September, I believe. And from then on, she always told me if anything happens to me, that Michael did it. And
Marlene mentioned any specific girlfriends, any names?
all she
while
said,
she was talking?
Well, she always knew he went out on her.
Mm-hmm.
But she always hoped and hid it, didn't want to admit to it. The only one she ever said was Sheila to me.
Okay, and this was?
That was Friday night.
Okay. She said Sheila was a girlfriend, or?
That he was having an affair with her.
In last week's episode, Sheila Keene would deny having an affair with Michael, even though many witnesses would say otherwise. And Michael denied it too. When confronted with the fact that eyewitnesses had picked her out of a photo montage for not only buying a costume, but buying the flowers and balloons the day of the shooting, Sheila denied both. She also said that she didn't have a gun, even though multiple witnesses had said that they'd seen her with one or one was in her truck.
I was going to ask you about your gun.
About my what?
Your gun.
I don't have a gun.
The gun you had.
I don't have a gun.
You never had a gun?
Well, when I lived with my husband, when we moved, it disappeared.
What kind of gun was that?
38 special.
You don't carry a gun in your repo truck?
No, you can't. Well, you can, but...
They all do.
Right, but it makes your insurance go sky high.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and I guess if you tell them that...
Do you have a permit for a gun anyway?
No, I went and took a course, for concealment, but I never did get a permit.
During this interview, 4 days after Marlene's shooting, the detectives apply a lot of pressure on Sheila.
Well, Sheila, like I indicated to you before, there's some things that trouble us a lot. One thing is the store where those flowers and balloons were bought is right around the corner from your house.
Right.
2 ladies that saw the lady who bought those flowers and those balloons. Saturday morning, 20 after 9, approximately. And they described you.
It wasn't me.
Okay.
Because I was down checking that car.
And then we know where the costume was bought. And we know when it was bought. It was bought Thursday afternoon. And 2 clerks were at the store when the costume was purchased by a lady who's described like you.
It's not me.
And, as you already know, many sources have told us of your relationship with Michael, and that it's much more so than what you and Michael are telling us. And we've been able to establish that Michael is frequently at your house, and sometimes overnight.
No, he was never there overnight. Never.
Sure.
Positive. Never. Nobody never spent the night at my house. So wherever that comes from.
They got the impression, at least. That he was
No, never.
With all that coupled together, brings us to a point where we've got to basically look to you and say, what's going on here? How come everything is pointing in Sheila's direction? You know what I mean?
Right.
And your hair and your physical description, the guy or the lady guy or lady, whoever it was that was in that clown outfit had big brown eyes. You had big brown eyes. Not that you're the only one with big brown eyes.
Right.
Towards the end of the interview, the investigators revealed something that they'd been holding very close to their vests, that they had just found the clown's getaway car, that white Chrysler LeBaron.
We got the car.
I wasn't in it.
We got hair on the car.
I wasn't in the car.
You know what type of hair it is? Besides the clown hair that's also in the car?
No.
Long brown hair. Ladies' hair.
Not my hair.
Just like yours.
There's a lot of people that's got hair just like mine.
That might be. I'm not saying that there isn't.
Right.
But when you take everything and then add that to it, we just got the car today. So you add that to everything else, the whole picture, all of the evidence, all of the statements that have been given to us by everybody that knows you, and that knows Michael, and that knows Marlene. It all comes back to you and Mike.
This Friday, Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan are back to switch things up in Disney's Freakier Friday.
OMG, yes.
It's an absolute riot.
Woo!
And the only movie that can be described as
so much weirder than the last time. What last time?
It's the frequel.
You ready?
We've been waiting for.
That absolutely slays. What deeply out-of-touch old person came up with that? You did. Wow.
Don't miss the comedy event of the summer for all ages. Disney's Freakier Friday. In theaters this Friday. Get tickets now. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
It's Wednesday Addams. I see you're trying to distract yourself from your own banal thoughts. Let me help. Here's a recording thing made of my latest root canal.
Wednesday, Season 2, begins August 6th, only on Netflix.
At the end of the day, they had nothing physically connecting Sheila to the murder of Marlene Warren, other than very compelling circumstantial evidence. But Sheila ended the interview when she wouldn't commit to taking a polygraph or giving a sample of her hair. That's when she requested to speak to an attorney. The getaway car had been found in a parking spot at a shopping center. Forensic experts would scour the white Chrysler LeBaron. During Sheila's interview with detectives, they had intimated that they had found fingerprints in the car, potentially Sheila's fingerprints. But in reality, that was just a bluff. The car had been wiped clean. The only forensic evidence that they did find were reddish-orange fibers that were consistent with a clown wig. The fibers were determined to be synthetic, but they couldn't say with 100% certainty if they were from a clown wig. They also did find 2 strands of what appeared to be long brown hair in the car, but this was well before advanced DNA testing. And to Sheila's point, she wasn't the only one that had long brown hair, which meant Sheila was cut loose. They didn't have enough to charge her with the murder of Marlene Warren. However, investigators did have a bone to run down after they ran the car plates and found out that that white Chrysler LeBaron had been reported stolen by a company called Payless. It was a used car lot, and the car had been stolen roughly 2 weeks before the shooting. And when investigators spoke with Payless, they got an earful about Michael Warren. Apparently, there was some bad blood between Payless and Michael's Bargain Motors. The feud had begun after Michael had taken out an ad in the Yellow Pages. Back in the day, the Yellow Pages were a place where businesses advertised. The size and position of ad space was critical, because if you were looking to rent a car, you picked up a Yellow Pages, flipped to rental cars, and then selected a business, which you then called the number or went to the address to make your reservation. So Mike had taken out this ad for Bargain Motors, and in the center of the ad, in bright yellow bold print, was the word Payless. The ad confused a lot of Payless customers who would call Bargain Motors, believing they were speaking to Payless. Payless had been so furious about what they believed was an obvious poaching of their business, so they filed a lawsuit against Michael and Bargain Motors. Della, Michael's former bookkeeper, explains.
Were any calls ever received there when you were there for Payless car rental?
Okay, yes. A lot of people would call us thinking, we would say, especially if I answered the phone, they would say, is this Payless? I used to say, yeah, Payless at Bargain. And then the next question would be, well, are you on Congress Avenue? No, we're at 1501 North Dixie. The way the ad is in the Yellow Pages is really, a lot of people used to get it mixed up. Okay? The boys, Ron and Don, they're clowns, they're jokers. They would say, yeah, this is Payless, especially if they were calling for a quote. You don't want to lose a customer.
Michael's distant younger cousins, Ron and Don, worked the phones at Bargain, and apparently it was alleged that Don had answered the phone the night that the car had been stolen at around 6-ish. So a couple had rented a car from Payless and had called Bargain by mistake. This couple had rented a white Chrysler LeBaron, and they were in a hurry to return the car back to Payless because they had a flight to catch. So when they looked in the Yellow Pages to call Payless about how to return the vehicle, they inadvertently contacted Bargain, thinking they were speaking to a Payless employee, when it was really someone from Bargain Motors who had given them the address there and told them to leave the car outside the gates with the keys tucked into the car's visor and that they should just walk away. The couple were kind of feeling sketchy about it, but they also had a plane to catch, so that's exactly what they did. As the police were investigating the getaway car, and they tracked it back to Payless and then Bargain Motors, the police believed that white LeBaron had been driven away by a Bargain Motors employee. And then it was like it disappeared. But after the LeBaron was taken into custody, and they were able to speak to the couple, they began to put together a case against one of Michael's employees in connection to the theft. And Michael had allegedly been implicated in the theft of the LeBaron as well. But there was no physical evidence linking Mike to the LeBaron as it related to the vehicle being the getaway car of the clown, even though many people had their opinions, including this former employee.
How about that white LeBaron that may be involved in this? This clown, or whoever it was, dressed in a clown suit, was seen leaving the area in a white LeBaron.
I can only tell you what I think.
Okay.
I have no facts on this. I think that people called Bargain by mistake, just like they said they did. I was working for Mike from Payless City.
Yeah.
I think that Don got the call. I think that possibly Mike and Don, or Mike, Ron, and Don, went and got the car, took it to Taggart, kept the car there until they needed it. I think Sheila had possibly started putting some pressure on Mike.
What do you mean by putting pressure on him?
Getting rid of Marlene and divorcing Marlene or something. And I just don't think Mike could have divorced Marlene because Mike had told me several times that he just could not divorce her.
But that's the thing. There was no evidence to support this opinion or to explain the circumstances behind how that white LeBaron had been driven away from the outside gates of Bargain Motors, where the couple had left it, and how the clown ultimately got their hands on it as their getaway car.
See, there's no doubt in our mind about that white LeBaron being stolen by people from Bargain Motors. We know that already. So that's not what we're interested in. Okay? What we want to know is how that car ended up in the hands, if it is indeed the car. It just happens to fit the description. But if indeed it is the car, how it ended up in the hands of the murderer. So we want to know where the car was.
I can't help you. I don't know. I wish I did. I don't know.
The people that did steal the car are going to be arrested. That's just, we're taking our time on doing it right now. We want to talk to everybody.
That'll be later.
The LeBaron theft brought even more heat onto Michael's business. It was a tie to the murder. It was also clear that Michael had a lot of cash all the time, that he lived in a posh neighborhood, but there was a duality to him. He was rough around the edges, and the car lot wasn't selling high-end vehicles to rich folks. His lot attracted people who didn't have a lot of money and who were desperate. People who would come to trust Michael He had the ability to make a person feel comfortable. He was charismatic, but at the end of the day, he was a used car salesman, the consummate smooth talker. And there were rumors that there was illegal activity going on behind the scenes at Bargain, that everything wasn't on the up and up. Remember, the Warren family lived in the Aero Club neighborhood, where their backyard connected to an airstrip. At some point, it was alleged that Mike's plane had been stolen and then showed up somewhere and the engine had been destroyed. And there was another story that one of Mike's racehorses had been found dead. There were rumors that Mike was in the drug trade, that he tampered with the odometers on his car lot, and other gossip. Here's a former employee.
Did you ever know Mike to be involved in any kind of drug smuggling or anything like that?
I mean, I have my suspicions. He did have a plane at one time.
Does he still have a plane?
He's got a lot of money. From what I understand, no. He had an engine fire a while back, and I assume he sold it. I was told that he didn't have his plane anymore.
What was the motivation for murdering Marlene? Trying to pin that down was like battling the mythical Hydra. When one head was cut off, two more heads would emerge in its place. Could Michael's alleged criminal activity at Bargain gotten Marlene killed? Was the murderer a disgruntled tenant exacting revenge for a grudge? Or was it closer to home? Shooting someone point blank in the face is a very personal crime. Was Marlene murdered by a jealous rival?
And you became aware later that some of the businesses were in Marlene's name.
I became aware of that. I wasn't even aware of it until I read it in the paper. I thought it was all in Mike's name.
What about relationships with other women? What do you know about his relationship?
A bunch of them.
A bunch of other women?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember recalling their names?
Well, Sheila Keeney had a real heavy relationship with.
Did you visually see that yourself?
Oh, yes.
There was no question about that?
Oh, there's no question about that. They didn't even try to hide it. The fact is, when she broke up with Richard, I understand Mike was footing all of her bills.
There was a lot of circumstantial evidence pointing to Sheila, especially when detectives found out that Michael wasn't just allegedly having an affair with Sheila, but that he was paying some of her bills, which was a surprise to even his bookkeeper.
Were you aware that Michael was giving her cash to pay her rent with?
No.
Would you have known that?
No.
Quite a bit of cash coming through that office?
Yeah, a lot of cash comes in, and if it's deposited, usually on the same day it comes in.
According to police, Michael wasn't just paying for Sheila's apartment, but he was seen there so much by Sheila's neighbors that they thought he was her husband.
Well, what was your impression of Sheila?
Sheila, when you meet her, you think of her as a little country girl from Okeechobee just trying to make it in a big city.
Yeah.
She's very wise, very, very wise, very slick, very sharp. Richard is more or less, my opinion, he's a patsy. If I was to guess, I would say Sheila pulled the trigger.
You think that she would be able to?
Sure, no doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind.
Think she was that tough?
She's tough. She doesn't get it, you won't see it. Because she gives you the impression of just a little country girl, in her tight blue jeans, long hair, and cowboy boots. I'm just trying to get ahead. No, I know Sheila. I've been to dinner with them too. She's very cold.
You ever seen Sheila carrying a gun?
Oh, yeah.
As word spread far and wide about the killer clown, people started coming out of the woodwork with information about Michael and his businesses and Sheila. How a couple of years before Marlene's murder, Sheila had come into an auto parts store dressed as a clown.
We didn't even make the connection until this morning. The article came out in the paper, and then we read the article, didn't even think any more about it, and then the counter guy and I were standing here, and it just clicked that she had come in one time in a clown costume. We thought that was just kind of weird.
Who else remembers that?
One of my other countermen here in the store.
They couldn't remember why she came in dressed as a clown, only that they were absolutely sure that she did.
The only thing we can state for a fact is we know she came in the store wearing one. I couldn't describe it to you, and I couldn't tell you exactly when it was, but we know it was her, and we know it was a clown, because, like I say, when they had the used car lot down here, she was in the store 3 and 4 times a day, all week long. She was a regular fixture in the store. And she was the kind of person you would joke with and tease a little bit. So when we do that with our customers, so we remembered razzing her about being in a clown outfit.
There's nothing like when you get that part from eBay
and it just fits. Yeah, the first time. So you can do less of this and get right back to more of this. At eBay, you'll find all the parts you need, guaranteed to fit, at prices you'll love. Sounds good, doesn't it? eBay, things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
It's back to school season, and Clorox is donating 2 million disinfecting wipes to classrooms across America. Because back to school means things can get a little bit messy. Just ask kindergarten teacher Miss Gibson.
Give me just one Clorox wipe and I'm ready for glitter glue, exploded lunchbox yogurt, peanut butter handprints, runny noses, picking noses, rubbing noses.
Touching noses.
Thank you, Edward. Ooh, nap mats and lockers and tissue boxes. And
Clorox
scissors.
disinfecting wipes. Teacher's #1 wipe. Clean feels good. Based on unit sales data.
Both of the employees were upset as they recalled Sheila's clown stunt to the investigator.
Or what the deal was, but she did pop in one day with a clown suit. And I couldn't tell you to save my neck what it looked like, but I'm sure it was...
Probably a couple years ago?
Yeah, at least that long, yes, sir.
Was it like a... Do you remember if it was like a whole clown suit or just like a face, like a mask?
No, it was a whole deal. It was a whole deal with a whole uniform thing on, or whatever, old baggy pants or whatever it was, but I couldn't tell you the color of it. Or, I don't even remember if she had a red nose on her and all that, or what the story was, but I do remember it, and it hit me real hard this morning, too.
Okay.
This thing has bugged me all day today, and I still can't tell you what the occasion was or why or anything about the doggone thing, but I do remember she coming in with a clown suit on one time, which I thought was unusual. Of course, we all had a big laugh out of it, you know. And back in those days, what the heck, it's just one of those deals.
Yeah.
I just thought, you know, it might have some bearing somewhere down the line, because that's a very serious deal over it, I'm telling you about now.
In June of 1990, police would serve a search warrant at Sheila's apartment. But ultimately, they didn't find anything to connect her to the case. But something would come out of the surveillance team that had been watching Bargain Motors. Here's a former employee.
What other types of unethical or illegal activities?
Well, a lot in the rentals, as far as price jacking and making reservations for people coming south without credit cards. Quoting the price, and then when you got there, of course, since you were from out of state, no credit card, the deposit would be more, the insurance rates would be astronomical, anywhere from $60 a day. I've seen it over $100 a day, because you were under 25, no credit card. You have to carry our insurance. Of course, once you're here, you've come down for spring break or whatever, that's the only place you can rent a car.
So he basically ripped people off.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. Same thing with car sales, yeah. A lot of the repossessions were illegal, as far as calling people and actually threatening them physically.
You ever see rollback odometers on the cars you sold? Or just
Oh
for the
yes,
rentals?
sure.
So they did it for the rentals and the cars?
Rentals and the sales.
Did you know of Mike's involvement in stealing cars other than that?
I know he did a lot of repossessing that was illegal. Now, what happened to the cars after they were repossessed, I don't know.
This former employee also weighed in on what he believed were Mike's true feelings toward his wife, Marlene.
Things you observed, we talked about before with Mike Warren and his relationship with his wife. What did you know about that relationship?
It was a real bad relationship.
How did Mike feel about Marlene?
He hated her. There's no doubt in my mind.
Did he
hated
that?
his wife. Sure. Several times.
And what kind of conversation did he make with you as far as his wife was concerned? How did he tell you that?
That he wished he'd get rid of the bitch, wished he'd never married the lady, sick and fed up with her shit. She was interfering in his life.
Did he ever make any direct direct statements or make reference to or any innuendos that he wanted to get rid of her?
Oh, sure. Sure. He never made a statement that he would kill her. But I asked Mike one time, you know, why don't you just divorce the lady? You know, if you're that miserable. Because my looking at it was, here's a man who's got, he's got all kinds of money. I mean, he walks around with more money in his pocket than I make a year, you know, with spending money. He spends $100,000 for racehorses. He's got his own twin-engine plane sitting at his home, and the man is miserable. I mean, I'm talking about really miserable.
What did he say as far as the divorce thing with Marlene?
He couldn't divorce her because he couldn't afford to give her half of what he had.
So it was a money thing?
It was a money thing, strictly money. Everything for Mike is money. Everything.
5 months after Marlene's murder, a search warrant would be executed at Michael Warren's used car lot. He would be charged with odometer tampering, racketeering, insurance fraud, operating a chop shop, and grand theft. He would stand trial for those charges. Ultimately, the jury would find Michael guilty of 43 counts, which included odometer tampering and fraud. He would be sentenced to 9 years in prison. The investigation into Marlene's murder would continue. Detectives continued running down leads from people who would call in with information. The truth is, because of the circumstances of the case, where a clown walks up to someone's front door, offers up balloons and flowers, and then shoots them in the face and confidently walks off, essentially getting away with murder. It was so outrageous. People just didn't forget. But as far as anyone being charged with her murder, there was a lot of speculation, rumor, and circumstantial evidence that Sheila had murdered Marlene, who was her romantic rival, an obstacle standing in the way of her man and all that money. But remember, everyone who had seen the clown that morning described him as being tall and a man. There were also tips that Michael had hired a hitman to murder Marlene. But those never panned out, and neither did the rumor that Richard, Sheila's estranged husband, had murdered her, either because he was jealous of the alleged affair that Sheila was having with Michael, and so that he murdered Marlene for revenge, or that Michael had just hired him to murder his wife because they had been good friends. The disgruntled tenant exacting revenge on Marlene for being evicted, that never panned out either, or that Marlene had been murdered because of Michael's shady business dealings. Nothing solidified enough for an arrest warrant for Marlene's murder. And with hundreds of murders in South Florida in 1990, the investigation into the murder of Marlene Warren went cold, but not forgotten. And the years rolled on. By 1997, Michael Warren was out of prison and putting his life back together. He moved to Tennessee, owned a fast food restaurant called the Purple Cow, which he was running with his girlfriend, Debbie. Again, Michael is known for his hard work ethic, and he and Debbie often work 6 days a week, and business is booming. The couple lived in a beautiful home on a lake in the Blue Ridge Mountains. In 2013, 23 years after Marlene's murder, there would be movement in the investigation. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office would receive a federal grant to perform some advanced DNA testing in Marlene's case. Remember those 2 strands of what appeared to be long brown human hair? Well, one of those hairs had a portion of the root still attached. In 1990, that didn't mean anything. But in 2013, that could spell DNA. But the wheels of justice and forensic testing turn slowly. And by 2017, a Florida reporter began looking into the killer clown case. Or more specifically, Michael Warren. The journalist started talking to neighbors of Michael Warren, and that's when one of them mentioned Debbie. The reporter was like, "Who's Debbie?" It was Mike's girlfriend. Some digging into Michael's girlfriend would reveal that Debbie was actually an alias for Sheila Keene. And Sheila had gotten married to Michael Warren in Las Vegas 12 years after Marlene's murder. Now, earlier in the podcast, Michael's distant younger cousins had been mentioned, Ron and Dawn. They were twins who had worked for Michael. It had been alleged that Dawn was the one who had taken the call that night when that couple had called Bargain, thinking that they were speaking with Payless and wanted to know where they could drop off their rental, the white LeBaron. Here's Ron being re-interviewed by investigators in 2017.
You all got arrested for the whatever.
Yeah,
a bunch of charges.
Yeah,
And then Michael went to prison.
Right.
And Bargain Motors didn't exist anymore.
Right. I went to Keeneland Racecourse in Lexington, Kentucky last fall. Driving through North Carolina, I decide I'm going to, I look on my phone and I get the name of the restaurant. Purple Worm or Purple
Cow.
Purple Cow, yeah. And so I dial it up, and a lady picks up the phone. I'm going to see if Mike Warren's there. Just say hello. She says, "This is what Purple Cow is called." I said, "Who is this, Sheila?" And I'd be damned if she didn't say, "Yeah." She said, "Who's this?" I said, "This is Ronald Mike Warren there." "Yeah, let me get him." And about 5 seconds went by. She says, "He's on the fryer or the grill. He can't talk right now. He'll call you back." Never had a conversation ever again. No, that's the first time I've talked to Sheila Keene since Marlene was killed, and I never did talk to Mike. She said Mike would call me back. He was on the grilling, or on the fryer or whatever. Never called me back.
In September of 2017, an arrest warrant was at long last issued for the person who was believed to be the killer clown. That long brown hair that had been submitted to the FBI's crime lab, that had been collected from the Chrysler LeBaron so many years ago, belonged to Sheila Keene Warren. Michael and Sheila had been driving home when they were pulled over. Deputies would explain that they had an arrest warrant for Sheila Keene for the first-degree murder of Marlene Warren. Michael Warren, on the other hand, was free to go. After Sheila was taken into custody, she was put in a room, and not long after, a cold case detective from Florida would introduce herself.
You go by Sheila or Debbie? Both, okay. Did you ever get your name legally changed to Debbie? No, you just go by both. Okay. Is Debbie your middle name?
It's a nickname.
Oh, nickname. Okay. Are you currently living in the place in Virginia here? No. Do you live in Tennessee?
In Tennessee.
Okay. And you just have two places? Mm-hmm. That place is beautiful over here. It's a beautiful place. And then you guys own a restaurant together still, or did you sell that?
I mean, I don't know. These questions you're asking me.
I'm just trying to get a background.
Yeah.
That's all. Just trying to get a background of what's been kind of going on in your life, and what's been going on.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't want to talk to you.
Okay. Do you want to know what you're charged with?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're charged with the first-degree murder, okay, of Marlene Warren. So I traveled up here to have you charged, obviously, with the first-degree murder after the indictment, but also to give you an opportunity to try to explain some things away, or to explain exactly more detailed what happened that day. I mean, I know you had went looking at some cars that day to repo. I mean, you really didn't have an airtight, according to the reports that I read, an airtight alibi, whereas Michael had an airtight alibi. So I was wanted to just see if you'd answer some questions that really weren't ever answered back then. Because right now Michael's free. Michael's not arrested. He hasn't been charged, and he's not going to be indicted for the murder. But you are the one who is left here to be in trouble.
I didn't do it, so that's the end of the story. I'm not talking to you.
Sheila would waste little time in letting her know that she wanted a lawyer, that there was no way that she was talking to her. Sheila would be extradited back to Florida, where she would be facing the death penalty. She pled not guilty. In 2018, while Sheila was awaiting trial, Don, Mike's cousin, was offered a proffer agreement. If he explained everything truthfully about what had happened with the Chrysler LeBaron, he would be granted immunity from prosecution, so long as he didn't have anything to do with Marlene Warren's murder. Don explains how the phone call came in regarding the return of the Chrysler LeBaron.
I just leave it outside our gate. We'll take care of it. We'll park it inside. They drove up probably about 25 minutes later. They had a cab or, a airport transportation behind them. They left the car. They were a little hesitant on the phone. Should I leave? Where should I leave the keys? I just told them to leave it above the visor. And they left the car, and I guess they flew back home, and the car was parked. A white Chrysler LeBaron was parked outside the car rental business.
And so, who took what time did you receive the phone call from them?
It was probably we were getting ready to shut down. It was probably about 6:30, so I took the call, and probably about 7:15 they dropped the car off.
So they drop off the car, and so what happens to the car once it's dropped off?
Well, obviously we were going to just bang it up a little bit, damage it up a little bit just to kind of, get back at Payless for the lawsuit.
So that was the intent, was to just bang up?
Yeah, we were just going to maybe bust out the windows, slam the tires, and leave it down at River Beach. Mm-hmm. And to do it enough by itself by leaving it there with the keys in it.
Right.
You know the area.
Right.
So that was the intention.
Did Mike Warren know that the receiver was a call? Did you tell him? Hey,
yes. Yeah, I did.
Can you tell me about that?
You know Mike Warren. You guys interviewed him. I said these people are going to drop the rental car here from Payless, and I'm like, all right, great.
Did he tell you what to tell them at all?
No.
Okay.
No.
So you already knew what to tell them.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So they dropped off the car, and who went to move the car? Did the car stay there? What happened?
No. The car was outside the gate. Like I said, we're getting ready to leave at about 7:15, 7:30. It might have even been 8 o'clock. Who knows? Mike and Sheila get in a Chrysler LeBaron. I jump in a rental car. We go eat.
But Don was adamant that he didn't know anything about how the car got into the hands of the murderer and that he had nothing to do with Marlene's murder.
When you were sitting discussing after this, the LeBaron was stolen and you guys were at dinner, was there any ever discussion that the LeBaron was going to be used from Sheila after the murder or anything like that?
Absolutely not.
So did you ever see the LeBaron again after that night?
The last time I seen the LeBaron was about 3 to 4 days after the incident happened. It was parked in a Winn-Dixie Every news station in the county had it on the news.
Okay, so that's
Yep,
the next time you saw it?
Yeah, it's the next time I seen the car.
So you saw it the night that it got stolen, and then on the news, the
That's
day
correct.
it got recovered?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you ever ask Mike Warren or Sheila Keene about that car?
Yes, I did, man. It scared the shit out of me because I knew it was the car we stole. You know, I stole. Right. I use that word. But yeah.
So who did you ask him?
Mike Warren. He says, no idea. If she did it, she did it. I don't know nothing about it. You know, I said, Mike, it sure looks like I took the car. It's parked in Royal Palm. I mean, it looks like we're guilty as could be. You know, obviously you guys open the trunk up. What you find in the trunk? Yeah, I mean, your stomach just does turtles. You know, when I know that's the car. It's in Royal Palm.
Did he admit that was the car that you guys had stolen when you talked to him?
He said it looked like the car we took. Okay. He never came out and said, "Boy, that's the Chrysler Baron. It was outside the gate." You know.
How did you know? You said, I mean, you're sitting here pretty certain that was the car.
Oh, without a doubt.
How do you know?
Well, I took it. I know it. I know Sheila. Oh, without a doubt.
Did you ride in the car?
Never.
Never. Okay.
Never.
So the only people that you saw inside the car was Mike Warren and Sheila Keene?
Yeah.
Even though Sheila's hair, those 2 long brown strands, which were found in the white Chrysler LeBaron, which was believed to be the clown's getaway car, was a physical link to the case. And yet, the case against Sheila was still almost entirely circumstantial. There was no eyewitness testimony putting her at the murder scene. Remember, the people who'd been there thought that it was a man, and no murder weapon had ever been found. The prosecution did have the 2 employees at the costume shop who picked out Sheila from a photo lineup as the person they believed bought the clown costume. And there were the employees at the grocery store who say they recognized her as the customer who had bought the balloons and the flower basket on the day of the shooting. But Sheila had engaged a high-powered attorney who would say that the 2 hairs that had been found inside the getaway car didn't prove that she was the killer, which is all to say that the prosecution's case wasn't a slam dunk. In fact, Sheila Keene Warren would sit in jail for more than 5 years in solitary confinement as she awaited her trial. Then, just 12 days before this trial was set to begin, the defense team would receive word that a file that her attorney had been requesting for 3 years entitled Clown Sightings had been found. The judge in the case was livid. He would give the defense 60 more days to investigate the clown sightings file. It had been so long, and the defense was having a tough time tracking down these other clowns that had been supposedly sighted the day of the shooting. The defense would also file motions to suppress the prosecution's evidence, including a fiber that had been found buried inside the ribbon that was connected to the balloon. According to the prosecution, the fiber was consistent with a fiber found in Sheila's apartment. But the defense had a lot of issues with the packaging of the evidence, that it wasn't tightly sealed and that it was potentially contaminated. On April 25th, 2023, just a few weeks before the trial was set to begin, an announcement was made that a plea agreement had been offered by the prosecution and accepted by Sheila Keene Warren. The deal was this: if she pled guilty for the second-degree murder of Marlene Warren, she'd be sentenced to 12 years. But because she'd been in jail since 2017, that meant she'd be out in just 16 to 18 months. The prosecution had arrived at this number based on sentencing guidelines back in 1990. The punishment for second-degree murder back in 1990 was 12 to 17 years. Sheila Keene Warren took the deal, but she still proclaims her innocence. And Michael Warren, he continues to proclaim that he had nothing to do with his former wife's murder, and neither did his wife, Sheila. The Murder Chronicles is a pie-in-the-sky production recorded live in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. We are produced by Brandon Morgan and myself, music by Soundstripe. For Pie in the Sky Media, I'm Carolyn Osorio, your writer and host. Thanks for listening.